Expose him! Expose him! Expose him!
It is not an exaggeration to say that this is the worst manga ending of recent history. This fanfiction ass ending belongs on AO3, not Manga Plus. I can't believe we're getting "and it was all a dream" endings in the big 2026. What are we even doing here? Well, I'm not letting it slide. This is a bad ending, and part 2 as a whole is awful. The characters are wasted, the themes are such, the plot is pointless, the cliffhangers were atrocious, the art was awful, and best of all, the fandom, who kept glazing it until now, brought this upon themselves. Part 1, the final 2 chapters. These 2 chapters are the funniest example of a manga failing in 2 entirely different ways. 231 is bleak. 232 is Disney. 231 off-screened everyone. 232 brings them back unless you like Reze and Aki, because screw you, they're gone forever. Let's not forget that both chapters break the rules of Pochita's erasure. In 231, Pochita ate himself even though he couldn't because he's physically not there. In 232, he brings everyone back in time when that is not how his power works. It retroactively removes the concept but keeps you in the present. But I guess that didn't matter to Fujimoto just so that he could write this ending. Fanfiction ass ending, Disney ass ending, Dream SMP ass ending, Avengers Endgame ass ending. For chapter 231, what I'll say is this. We've learned it's possible to combine the off-screening of Gojo, the fraudness of Ymir, the pointlessness of Oshinoko, the pro-suicide messaging of Platinum End, all made even worse by the fact that these are happening to the main goddamn character. For 232, all I'll say is this. If you've cared even once about the story and where it was gonna go, congratulations, and here's a Fell For It Again award. Turns out the only solution to how this story is gonna be solved is to just erase all the bad guys. Makima's not here, Death's not here, Yoru's not here, and I assume Famine and the Gun Devil aren't for whatever reason. Nothing has changed fundamentally, and yet we are expected to believe that everything is all better now just because Denji and Power are trading MCU-style quips, and there's a literal title drop in the last chapter. Genuinely, what the hell? How can one story be so sickly sweet and brutally nihilistic at the same time? I'll shatter the limits of pacing like no mangaka has before. Gege! Off-screening awaits me. Exceeding all known limits of pacing, Fujimoto is the one who'll end his manga at light speed. Part 2, themes and such. Chainsaw Man Part 2 has themes, lots of them. The Justice Devil arc is a partial coming of age for Asa. The Dating Denji arc is about making your own path in a world that tries to force you to work by its rules. The Falling Devil arc is about learning to keep living when you're traumatized and depressed. The Chainsaw Church arc is how religion is used to control people. The Aging Devil arc is about Japanese society being weighed down by the elderly and the aging. The current arc has some America critique riddled in and is a deconstruction of the mentality that led Denji to this bad end that he found himself in. I'm saying this to prove I get it. I really do. I understand Chainsaw Man, but that doesn't make it good, because the end result is actually you shouldn't get what you want. Desiring something is what makes you truly happy. It doesn't tie into any of the themes. In fact, it counters them. You can't mature if you're stunted by trauma. Are you just meant to comply with the authorities and the elderly who force their ways upon you? Because Pochita thinks so. By stealing agency from Denji, all of these themes are destroyed in one fell swoop, leaving behind an ending that is totally nihilistic. I don't believe Fujimoto believes this. I think he just doesn't realize the impact of what he wrote.
There's still something you need to address!
And while I'm at it, I've heard a common refrain that the term themes and such is anti-intellectual. It's not anti-intellectual, it's formalist. Themes and Such is a compressed version of the critique that Chainsaw Man has nothing going for it other than its themes. If you were to apply the same level of analysis to its form, characters, script, and art, you would have to tear it apart. Focusing purely on the themes, which every single other story has, and which is partially in the minds of the viewer, is a ludicrous way of engaging with the manga. At this point, you're willfully illiterate and you're not reading it for what it is. You're reading it for what you want it to be. Three, meaningless plot. The most maddening part about this is that the plot itself has nothing to do with the themes of Chainsaw Man. The world was doomed from the start, and the only character who had any real agency to write this ending wasn't Denji, or Asa, or Yoru, or even Pochita, it was Death. Death was the only one who maintained agency throughout the story, in life and in digestion. If Death survives, the world dies. If Death gets eaten by Pochita, the world gets eaten by Bugs, or Pain, or whatever other devil takes her place. There is no correct answer. Nothing Denji could do, no choice he can make, would solve this plot. Either Yoru gets her power-up because America develops nukes, which she has no influence upon, forcing Death to be eaten by Pochita under fear of becoming a weapon, or Death continues to live and kills everyone. You could run the simulation 1,000,000 times, changing little things here and there, and the story would still end up screwed. So ironically, due to that, there are zero stakes in the story whatsoever. Since none of the main characters have agency, none of their choices matter. Since none of their choices matter, there's no reason to care. Part 4, The Controversy Cycle. Fujimoto has been playing his audience this entire time. There's a simple way he jangles keys in the audience's face over and over again. First, he makes a chapter with a controversial element, then the unbearable discourse ensues. People make headcanons and say, just wait for the next chapter, he'll clear this up. Then the new chapter drops and he doesn't address it at all. The Glazers continue on, satisfied they won the argument, and the critics find another objectionable thing in the new chapter. Go back to any chapter and I can assure you that this is what happens. This isn't a way to write a real story. He's not building up to anything. He's just throwing shit at the wall and nothing sticks. There's no care or effort into making the whole story cohesive. The only thing that matters is getting people to stick around for the next week to see if they're right. Part 5, The Art Decline. This is really low-hanging fruit, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. Chainsaw Man's art quality has undeniably gone down over the course of Part 2. The drawings got rougher, Denji turned into a mouth breather, Fujimoto started using more 3D models and this pen that has zero pressure sensitivity, and just in general, it's completely illegible at points. Chainsaw Man Part 1 is one of the best paneled manga I've read. Fujimoto's use of negative space, the borders between panels, his cinematic shorthands, and the use of onomatopoeia are amazing, to the point that the rougher artwork didn't bother me in the slightest. That's why I found it so disappointing that all of these elements were absent from Part 2. Part 1's paneling was unique among shonen manga, but Part 2 looks like just any other. I think basically everyone can agree on that. What I'd like to address in this segment is a couple of rumors and myths. Myth number 1, Fujimoto lost all of his assistants and that's why the art got worse. This is false. Fujimoto's famous assistants left after Part 1, and he was given new ones for Part 2. You can tell by looking at early Part 2 that the art quality is the same as it was in Part 1. It only falls off starting at the Falling Devil arc, and there were no personnel changes at that point. Myth number 2, Fujimoto is overburdened by Jump. This is false, and he takes as many breaks as he wants. If it was true that he was overburdened, then we would see a difference between chapters that took 1 week to make versus chapters that took 2 weeks to make. However, you cannot tell the difference between these chapters. That proves that for whatever reason, this is just as good as he wants the art to be. It's not Jump's fault. I've seen people say that he should do monthly chapters, and that wouldn't be a solution either. If he takes 1 week to draw 14 pages and 2 weeks to make 17, then he'd probably only make 25 pages a month. We can also see that the final chapter, which took 2 weeks, has many more pages, proving that this level of productivity was possible the entire time. Fujimoto's time per page is far greater than any other weekly mangaka, but it makes no difference to the quality of the art. Myth number 3. The art style is purposefully made to show Denji's deteriorating mental state. This is false. We've had multiple chapters without Denji's POV, and the art quality remains consistently at a lower level. We've also had chapters in which Denji's mental state improves, and the art quality remains consistently at a lower level. If this was true, then we would see the quality of the art fluctuate based on his mindset. Part 6. The Fandom. Frankly speaking, there isn't a better fandom that this could have happened to. Chainsaw Man fans have been compared to Rick and Morty fans, and spiritually they're very similar. No offense to the current Rick and Morty fans, who are now quite reasonable and sane, but they used to be incredible glazers of the highest level, pseudo-intellectuals, and would generally go crazy if you didn't love their thing as much as they did. Chainsaw Man fans were much the same. The manga was showing cracks ever since the aquarium arc had Nayuta hit the reverse button on Denji and Asa's relationship, but anyone who dared point that out lacked media literacy. It's ironic because Chainsaw Man became the shonen manga with the lowest words per page, beating out JJK Modulo and My Hero Academia. It gets to a point where you understand why JJK fans placed literal curses on them, and succeeded, me included. Like seriously, what was that? Can anyone explain this? Anyways, the fandom being so insane and glazing Fujimoto is probably why you had so many people essentially writing the story for him, even as he continued to off-screen more and more plot points, leaving his sidecast undeveloped. Chainsaw Man fans figured out how to make 1-hour video essays on why Yoshida is a deep character. Fujimoto's awful critique of America and milquetoast government bad themes were held up as incredible messaging, even as Kagurabachi approached the topic with greater nuance and thoughtfulness. The fandom propping up Chainsaw Man so hard, even though events that would have broken any other fandom, is why it's crashing so hard now, and I can't help but sit back and laugh. Part 8. The Characters. I was originally gonna script this, but I couldn't bring myself to write more words for this than Fujimoto himself did. After 231, I was resolved to wait until the final chapter came out, just to see who would be left out so that I could talk about them. Yoshida was already wasted, and so was Nayuta, and obviously the Famine Devil wasn't coming back, but maybe the Fire Devil would, or Asa and Yoru would get a conclusion, or Denji, surely, at the least. But no, none of that happened. What we get instead are a bunch of characters who look like them, act like them, but are decidedly not the characters that we have come to know over the course of reading Chainsaw Man. Aki, Denji, Yoru, Makima, Death, Asa, Power, Nayuta, they're all gone now, and they're not coming back either. And to be honest, that's a really sad thing to say about this manga, that none of the characters meant anything in the end, because it was all just a dream. I don't even know what to say at this point. Because yes, while I knew that Chainsaw Man was gonna end poorly, it was already too poorly written by, the Chainsaw Church arc to actually be good again. I didn't expect it to be just this bad, to the point where everyone could agree that it was written this poorly. So, I won, I guess. Good for me.